Believe in Bigfoot? Dogman? Any cryptid? Are you skeptical?
Curious about the supernatural, conspiracy theories, the unknown? Then come join us as we explore facts, tall tales, and encounters on Creatures and Curiosities.
Welcome to Creatures and Curiosities. As always, I'm David.
I'm Jake.
This week, we're going to be talking about a relatively new cryptid. Goes by the name of Chupacabra.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, it's pretty famous down in Texas and the southwestern states, but that's not where it originated. So we'll go over basically what it is, where it originated, and the fact that it's still being seen to this day.
Yep.
And then later in the podcast, we're going to go over your sighting, which I can't wait to hear about.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I talked to the wife quite a bit about it because obviously she was with me when we saw it. So
yeah,
like you said, we'll get into it later, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I love it. So anything new?
No, I'm still grinding away, getting the house ready for the baby, building stuff and cleaning all the baby clothes and
nice,
getting it all ready since, my wife's pretty much 9 months-ish pregnant.
Yeah. Well, as grandparents, we're champing at the bit to see it too,
Yep.
Can't wait till she enters the world.
It's going to be exciting.
Unless she's a little cryptid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, even that'd be exciting.
Yeah, because we'll just do a podcast on her. Exactly. We can have her on.
I like it. All right, well, let's get into it. The Chupacabra was originally named Chupacabras, and it was a Spanish word meaning literally goat sucker. So chupar is, the meaning is to suck, and cabras is a goat. And so it is a goat sucker.
Which is horrifying because they're calling it that because of what it's doing to their livestock.
Right. So this thing was originally described as more of a reptilian type creature. It was about 3 to 4 feet in height, heavy in stature. They're saying anywhere between, like 80 to 115 pounds, which for a 3-foot tall animal is pretty.
That's portly. Yeah.
That's pretty portly. It had a hunched shape, which was, they're describing similar to the shape of a kangaroo with sharp fangs, glowing red eyes, and a row of spikes down its back.
This description is definitely the scariest out of the two.
Definitely so. And of course, it reminds me of the first movie that I saw about Chupacabra, which I'll talk about in just a second. But on its original sightings, some people said that it had fur. Some people said that it had scales. And it just kind of depends on the person that you talk to at the time. And like you said in one of our episodes, fear grips people in different ways.
Yep.
People see different things.
Some people were saying that they would see it on all fours, and some were saying that they would see it bipedal, so it'd be walking around just on its hind legs.
Right. And, that's always terrifying to think that these different kinds of cryptids can either chase you on all fours, quicker, or run after you.
Stand up.
On 2 legs. And that's just kind of frightening to me. But some people witnessed this and kind of described it as being the classic gray alien, with the domed shaped head and the great big eyes. And so, I suppose people could say that it could be alien-esque or reptilian. So over time, as those sightings became more frequent in the United States, in specifically Texas area and New Mexico and Arizona, the description had changed from what was originally an alien or a kangaroo-like reptilian vampire to being more along the lines of a hairless, blue, gray, leathery-skinned, canine-type animal that had a large snout, and it was often described with the hind legs longer than the front legs, putting it into kind of that sloped, unnatural position.
Yeah.
Not
like a normal dog or
like a
coyote or whatever you would see.
Right. And so I remember my first viewing, I guess, of a Chupacabra was a movie. It was a really cheesy movie. It was a terrible B-rated.
Those are some of the best.
But yeah, obviously the best. And I still remember it. So it had to have struck me as something that was kind of fun. It was on Sci-Fi Channel, I think. It was a Sci-Fi original. And it was called Chupacabra Dark Seas. And it was made in 2005, but later released on DVD under a different name. I think it was Chupacabra, the Terror, or just Terror, or something like that. But it was a story about a cryptozoologist who, I think he was on vacation at the time, but he is in the Caribbean islands, and he finds a Chupacabra, and he catches it. So he crates this thing up, smuggles it on board a big luxury cruise liner ship. And of course, as all sci-fi movies would do, this thing escapes and winds up slaughtering pretty much everybody on board. I just remember it had a scene of a little dog, with the elderly female, and the little dog escapes, and it's going through the baggage area, and this thing is stalking it, and that it's going to end up killing this little dog.
Right.
And I think the dog survives like they always do. Then they make you think it's going to die. And anyway, I don't remember if they ate the little dog or not, but they took that initial description of reptilian with the red eyes and the sharp teeth and the domed head with the huge, glowing red eyes and the spikes that go down its back. They took that literal, and that's exactly how they made the movie, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's more horrifying than the weird looking dog for sure.
Right.
Both
right.
scary, but definitely that one's takes the cake.
So this guy originated in about 1995 is when it got the name Chupacabra. And so it wasn't long after that when Sci-Fi came out with that movie. 10 years had passed. But they weren't the first ones to jump on it. In fact, do you remember the show X-Files?
Oh, that was growing up in the 90s. I would stay up late, sneak and watch TV, and that's what I'd watch almost every night. I
remember my wife and we would actually plan life around the X-Files. If we were out and about or at a kid's sporting function or something, it was like, what time is it? Because we got to get home and watch the X-Files. So, yeah, that was one that we were pretty obsessed with it.
Yeah.
You become addicted to their little weekly antics. But they ran one just 2 years after the discovery of Chupacabra. And I don't remember the exact season, but I do know that it was called, they entitled it El Mundo, I think it's Guerra or Guerra. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but in Spanish, it's The World Turns. And the whole thing was about goats being killed, on these farms. And so it was literally, they took it literal as the goat sucker,
when you were making the music for our intro, 70s sci-fi movies and the X-Files is what came to mind.
Yeah.
When you were talking about what I kind of wanted. And that's the reason I was saying, I wanted to have that X-Files sci-fi. And
right.
You nailed it. Because, that's all I could think of when when you're talking about weird stuff. X-Files always pops to mind. So
yeah, X-Files and then more recently, like Stranger Things.
Yep.
I have several synthesizers and whatnot because I do a lot of music stuff, and it was just fun, creating that. But so the Chupacabra has left this wake of dead farm animals, and they all had one thing in common, and that was that they had these circular puncture wounds in their chest. And most of the time, the reports were that they had been drained of all their blood. I've read several accounts that said that's not 100% accurate, that the animals were killed, but not necessarily completely drained of blood. But some were. And so if some were, then, it's a Chupacabra.
And I also think that there's a pretty big distinction between puncture wounds and bite marks. If you watch a coyote or a wolf or even a dog kill something and then eat it, it's ripping and biting. It's not puncturing
Right.
and then removing blood, even if it's a little bit.
Right. I agree. And then why were these all like in the chest area? That's kind of bizarre too. Why weren't the puncture wounds at the hindquarters because like when you watch a dog attack something, it just goes crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Wherever it can bite, it's biting.
Cats, especially like big predator cats, they usually go for the throat or the back of the neck. And that's what they at least attempt to do, right? They're going to try and take their prey down very quickly and either paralyze it or suffocate it.
Yep.
Dogs, though, and I've watched many, many dog attacks, and I've actually been attacked by dogs before. They bite you wherever they can get you.
Whatever's closest to them.
Yeah, they just lunge and grab onto whatever body part that they can get their little teeth onto. And so for all of these farm animals, and later just pets, just animals in general, were just being located everywhere, drained of blood with puncture wounds in them. And they keep trying to write it off as a rabid dog or a coyote or a whatever. They will and can kill animals and not eat them.
And how did they get a hold of the animal if it's running away? You got to assume that if this thing's attacking another animal, whatever it is, a goat, whatever, that it's going to be running. So how is it getting up next to it, under it, just to puncture the chest? There's no wounds anywhere else.
No, it's almost like it's being held down on its back, and then...
It's not like, well, its leg was kind of ripped off, and that's how it stopped it, and then it turned it over. Or,
right.
Or, like you said, with the big cats, it grabbed its neck, worked at that for a second, and then went to the chest.
Right.
There's not big descriptions on anything else but those puncture wounds.
And I don't know if there's any witnessed accounts of the animal being killed by Chupacabra. There's plenty accounts of Chupacabra scurrying off.
Right.
After the kill. And then when they locate the animal, there's those puncture wounds. And it could be mass hysteria.
Right.
Where they're saying it's drained of blood, and maybe it really isn't. Maybe there's just a loss of blood. But it does appear on all witness accounts that this thing was drinking their blood and not eating the flesh and tearing them apart. It was more vampire-esque.
Yeah.
Living off of their blood, which... that's not a typical canine trait.
Right.
So going back to its kind of the origins of it, chupacabras were located mainly in the Puerto Rico area. That's where they were initially reported. And then into Mexico and the southwestern United States. Again, as I said, it was usually down around Mexico. It was Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and bordering states of Mexico. So assumably the animal was coming up into the states from Mexico. But then it was later reported that chupacabras were being located as far north as Maine in the U.S. and in South America as far south as Chile. And then they started reporting these outside of North and South America in countries such as Russia and the Philippines and different areas. But to go along with that, they've said that the reports that come from those types of areas are completely unfounded, with
just some guy saying it.
Zero evidence.
Right.
Maybe there was a farm animal killed or something, but it didn't necessarily have the puncture wounds. It didn't have kind of the MO, of a chupacabra, and the sightings they believed were like anecdotal. They just weren't real. People were making stuff up based on the legends of the chupacabra in other areas.
Right.
And they just wanted it in their country, or they wanted some notoriety or whatever the case. But there's been no actual physical evidence, because here in the U.S., there is physical evidence.
A lot
of evidence. And Chupacabra is one of the only cryptids that we've recovered their bodies. And so depending on how you want to believe it, okay, and at the end of the podcast, we'll kind of get into the debunking the Chupacabra as to what people think it is. And I'm just going to go on record saying I don't believe it.
Yeah, no. Same.
And we'll get into the detail on that. But I believe, and again, why have a podcast on cryptids if you don't believe in them?
Right.
I guess is the theory here. But based on what I'm seeing and what witnesses have reported and evidence that's been left behind and actual bodies, carcasses of these animals, they're not just normal canines.
I think the people who are saying that, it's not real or trying to find something to debunk it, I think there's a couple things. I think there's a level of fear that they're like, well, I don't want some, especially if you go off the first description.
Right.
I don't want some 2-legged, fat, 3-foot-tall thing murdering,
alien
running out there could be murdered by this thing.
Right.
And then I think there's also the people who can't accept things that don't quote unquote sound rational.
Right.
Where they're like, no, there has to be some kind of
Scientific
data or science.
reason.
Yeah. And so I'm going to do whatever I can. Kind of like, what do you call it when you're biased against it? You know what I'm talking about? Where you only look for the data that supports your thing.
Right.
Whatever that's called. I'm sure someone will correct me, but I think those people are looking at it from that aspect. They're like, you know what? This can't be real. So I'm going to do everything I can to prove it wrong,
Right.
rather than just going off the facts. Like you said, with the carcasses, the puncture wounds,
Yeah.
the bodies we've recovered, stuff like that.
I agree. And I think that there could be, call it a conspiracy if you will, but just I believe that in order to prevent panic, they rationalize things.
Confirmation bias. That's what it is. It's confirmation bias.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, it's kind of like in our first episode, Bigfoot, when I was telling my wife that it was the neighbor's dogs. Right. And so in order to suffice that situation, not create panic and keep her rational.
And feeding the horses.
I had to lie.
Yeah, exactly. Those horses would have starved to death if you didn't.
Yeah. I mean, who would believe that a dog, grabbed a horse hoof and put it on top of a
5 nights in a row.
5 nights in a row. It didn't happen. And so there's a part of me that believes that that's what science does. Instead of being able to just say, hey, we don't know what it is, but it is killing animals and it is running rampant throughout South America and North America, in order to keep people in line and rational, they come up with theories that I don't believe.
And I even think it's to the point where, like with the confirmation bias type stuff, when they say, well, not all the blood was drained. Well, how much was left?
Yeah.
Was it like half a cup? So you're like, oh, well, not all of it was drained. So technically they're not blood sucking.
And if this thing held an animal down and punctured its chest just for fun,
right?
If that killed the animal, then they don't really actively bleed out. Once the heart stops, they're no longer pumping blood out.
Yeah, they'll just sit there full of blood.
Yeah, and so they want to say, well, they didn't eat the animal, they just killed it, Well, we're talking about thousands, though. We're not talking about one incident. But anyway, it's considered one of the newest cryptids in that it was discovered in 1995.
Right.
And that's when it was named. But if you do a little bit of research on the killings themselves, not the animal or not, what is now known as Chupacabra, they didn't know. But what we do know is that the same kind of series of killings of livestock occurred in 1975, which is 20 years earlier than the discovery or the witnessing of a Chupacabra. And this actually happened in a little town called, I believe it's called Mocha, Puerto Rico, where they found carcasses of several cows, goats, and chickens, all again with puncture wounds in the chest, all drained of their blood. And there were so many animals killed in that fashion that they started rumors of a vampire was killing all these animals. Right?
Yeah, they were calling it the Vampire of Mocha.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of a cool name.
Yeah, oh, you got to love that. I kind of like it better than Chupacabra.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually. But, some people believe that it was the work of a satanic cult and not an animal or a vampire, that they thought maybe people were doing this and sacrificing animals and bloodletting them and doing things of that nature.
You got to think, too, how, like we've said in almost all our episodes, how many were unreported before that? And not out of the thought of, oh, I'm going to be ridiculed if people see that I have this and I'm claiming it's this, but more so just maybe you're a farmer, maybe you're working by yourself, maybe it's just you and your family, and it's busy, nonstop all day. You're fixing fence, you're running cattle, you're doing whatever. So when you find a dead animal, you just dispose of it. You just do your thing.
Right.
You're not investigating it. How did it die? It doesn't look sick, whatever. Maybe a coyote got it. I don't care. It's dead. I got work to do. Let's move along kind of thing.
Right.
I wonder how many of those happened before that.
Or just, and I don't want to use the term misidentification because, we know we hate that, right? In the world of cryptids. But in the Jersey Devil story, it was in 1980 when the pigs were all slaughtered and eaten,
right,
and drained of their blood, right? So that was potentially aliens, potentially a Jersey Devil, but what if it was a Chupacabra?
Could have been a Chupacabra through the area.
Gnawed on their head and sucked the blood out of all the pigs. And so there are things that are going to predate the 1995 classic sighting of Chupacabra.
Right.
And so, you got to wonder, how long has this thing existed? But after the Mocha, Puerto Rico incident, these killings started spanning out, and they ended up all over the island, and farms were reporting loss of animals on a routine basis, and it was getting worse and worse. And what they did determine was that they were all killed in the same way. The animals weren't being eaten. They were just being drained of their blood. And they all had the puncture wounds.
Right.
And so, you either have a satanic cult with crazy people running around with whatever, an ice pick or something, and holding animals down and bloodletting them.
Thousands of them, apparently.
Thousands of them, or you have a vampire, or you got a Chupacabra. And,
I could knock it off as the cult if you're talking 10, 5, low numbers, not thousands.
Right.
Thousands, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, I've seen cases of satanic cults down in the Los Angeles area where they were, and again, we're only talking a few incidences of this,
right.
Where they were nailing cats to trees, like in the form of an upside down cross,
right,
and bloodletting them and gutting them out. And it was a ritualistic thing. But when you're talking about 10 cats, not, thousands of livestock.
And you also got to think of the difference in population too. How big is Los Angeles? You're probably more likely to have more crazy, satanic,
crazy people
weirdos
running around,
rather than in small farming towns of Puerto Rico.
Right.
I doubt that there's just 50 satanic cult members running around slaughtering
every farm animal in sight. So in March of 1995 is when Chupacabra came into existence. It was first reported that 8 sheep had been found drained of their blood and had puncture wounds, again, on their chests. And those sightings of this particular cryptid began in the middle of the island near the town of Morovis, and then another little town called Orokovas. And then they spread throughout that entire region and territory. And in August of 1995, there was a woman by the name of Madeline Tolentino who reported seeing the creature in the town of Canovanas, I believe is the name of it, where over 150 animals and pets had been killed. And I did read that they attributed her sighting to the recent release of the movie species. And so they're saying that's where this whole description came from of the spikes down the back and the reptilian
Right.
stuff. I don't think that's necessarily fair.
No, just because she saw a movie doesn't mean that she's
Yeah,
not seeing what she saw.
right. Exactly. So they're not taking into account what she saw. They're taking into account that she had seen the movie Species and was describing basically the same thing that she saw in a movie.
Which just goes back to what I said about the people who have to rationalize it. They have to think, yeah, this can't be true. Like, got a small town, 150 dead animals. It's got to be, no, this lady's just, she saw a movie, she freaked herself out.
Yeah.
It's got to be the only logical thing.
Yeah, she's clearly crazy. And so they chalked it up to that, you know, that she saw a movie, she became hysterical, and that's how Chupacabra was born, was through the lunacy of some poor woman. It's crazy. But over the course of a year from 1995 through 1996, 2,000 plus small animal deaths were attributed to Chupacabra in Puerto Rico. And that included like calves and sheep, dogs, pigs, geese, chickens, turkeys, rabbits, and goats, and pretty much any animal that was a pet or on a farm, livestock, had been slaughtered by this thing. And that's just too many.
That's too many. Especially going back to what you said about what you saw back in the day with the cats. When you're talking population difference, 10 compared to over 2,000,
right?
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
To think that it's a satanic cult is what I'm getting at there.
Right. So, news of all these killings really took the media by storm, and they started reporting all these incidents as they came in. And what they found was that there were almost no human encounters as much as there was just like farmers running out and seeing this thing running off after a kill. Nobody ever witnessed the kill. So nobody can say, how it got him, how it held him down, how it punctured the chest, how it drained the blood. Nobody that I can find is on record stating how that occurred. They just see the aftermath, all of their dead animals and this thing scurrying off, through the prairies or into the forest or, farmlands or, wherever they happen to be. But people start panicking to the extent that in Canavanas, the mayor at the time, his name was Jose Soto, he had actually organized several hunting parties to go out, track Chupacabra down and kill it.
Which is wild to think that your local government believes in it, the validity of it so much that they're going to take up arms like an angry mob and go out and hunt it.
Right. And you know what? We get this same story in almost every episode we've done, right?
Yeah.
The townspeople get together, and you can just picture them with their pitchforks and their clubs and
torches
axe handles and torches, and they're all marching off into the depths of the forest, on a foggy night looking for this cryptid. And in literally every case that I can think of, that's been the case.
Yep.
Right? I mean, to this day, they have groups that go out hunting for Bigfoot. Not just TV shows, but actual like clubs on quads.
Yep.
And like over in Washington, they have festivals where they're out looking for it, and setting apples out, and they're still hunting that. And then the Jersey Devil, the only one where they didn't hunt it in one of our episodes was the gnome. They just tore his little house down.
Yep. Freaked out and left.
Left, ripped the house down, and now he's living with that woman in the upstairs bedroom,
serenading her nightly.
Exactly. So I just kind of find it funny that the cryptids have created so much hysteria amongst people, whether it's Indian folklore or just American folklore. It doesn't matter if you're, a drunk on a porch in the Appalachians or if it doesn't matter. People come up with these stories, they believe them, they last for hundreds of years, and people get so stressed out and panicked over it that they form vigilante parties to go out and hunt these things.
The ones nowadays are more in good fun and to prove that like Bigfoot exists. Use Bigfoot, for example. But back then, it was solely based on fear.
Absolute
and,
fear.
You know, preservation of their livestock. Obviously, the guy's got to live, or the town has to live, because I'm sure, you know, the milk from the goats, any kind of meat from the animals, chickens, stuff like that, the eggs, they're probably supplying that whole town. So they're thinking, we're going to die off if we don't go out and kill this thing.
So a little bit of trivia here, I guess you could say. There was this Puerto Rican comedian by the name of Silverio Perez. And he is actually one that was credited with naming the Chupacabra shortly after that first incident in 1995 was reported. And he's the one that coined the term goat sucker, you know, in Spanish.
Right.
So he came up with Chupacabra, it stuck, and it's been Chupacabra ever since 1995. But it became extremely popular in like modern day. There's been, I'd say, a handful of movies, but I counted at least 20 when I was researching how many movies have been made about Chupacabra.
And I'm sure they're all B-rated, just like we were talking about earlier.
They're all total crap.
Still watch them, though.
But and I would watch them, you know. And in fact, I had made a list of some of them, which we're not going to go over it, but like some of the most famous ones, they say like the number one movie is Indigenous, and Chupacabra versus the Alamo. I think that has old Poncherello, you know, Eric Estrada or something. I think it's in that one. But there is a slew of movies about Chupacabra, and so if anybody, you know, wants to kind of check that out, all you got to do is Google it, and there's a ton of movies, there's a ton of DVDs now out there about Chupacabra. So I think it'd be fun to kind of get into some of the sightings. I started to research sightings. There's so many of them.
It's almost overwhelming. Yeah,
it is overwhelming.
Yeah,
there's thousands and thousands of sightings, and it's becoming even more prevalent. I know Mexico, Texas, there's been so many sightings alone just in Texas, you know, that you can't even account for all of them.
Right.
You can go on, people have videos, there's carcasses in museums.
Several.
There's a zoo, I think in San Antonio, possibly. I can't remember now. I mean, it was so overwhelming to read everything. But I want to say San Antonio Zoo actually has a Chupacabra exhibit. And I don't know if they still have it. I know that it was about 2020 or 2019, something like that, when they announced that they were going to have this exhibit. I don't know if it's still running. But Chupacabra became so famous, and people, I don't think are in fear of it anymore as much as they were. But it's definitely still out there, definitely still part of our modern day culture, and people love to post videos of what they think are Chupacabras. Right?
Yeah.
And so I did write down a couple of the most famous ones. And there's a little town in Texas called, I think it's called Cuero. And it was known as the Chupacabra capital of the world. And that little town is located in DeWitt County, just south of Lockhart and east of San Antonio. And there was a rancher by the name of Phyllis Kenyon. And in 2007, she claims that she saw one of the strangest sights she's ever seen, and it was out on her ranch property, but I think it was a road that was running through the ranch. And somebody had hit this creature and is laying on the roadside dead. She gets out, she takes a look at it and thinks, this is nothing I've ever seen before. So she drags its carcass out of the roadway so that it didn't get, you know, pummeled and turned into nothing.
Right.
And she rolls it over onto a feed sack and takes a picture of it and posts it. Well, of course, it goes viral. And people are like, what in God's name is that, is that creature? And she says that it was hairless, that it had this black leathery skin. It had canine features, but it had bright blue eyes.
Which the blue against the black has to be creepy looking.
It really makes it stand out
Yeah.
because I've seen the pictures of it.
Same,
You know,
yeah.
and it's pretty cool. And it does not look like a coyote or anything.
You got to think too, if this lady's a rancher, especially in Texas, she's out there all day. She sees coyotes. She sees, I forget what they have like some kind of Mexican wolf. I think it might actually be called a Mexican wolf that kind of makes its way up to Texas sometimes. Sure, she's seen those depending on where she's at. And she knows that this is not anything like one of those.
Nothing like that. She does say that, you know, it's canine-ish.
Sure, yeah.
In appearance, you know. But she also said that its hind legs are longer than the front, which what I described earlier, right? Even from the onset, where it wasn't dog-like, it was more alien or reptilian. It was literally described from the beginning as having this kind of slope or an unnatural arch that some people described as like a kangaroo body or something of that nature. And she said that the lower jaw was much shorter than the entire snout. So you know how a dog's lower jaw is about the same length of this as the snout. The little jowls and the nose come down into the bottom lip. And this was extremely recessed, where the lower jaw is set back. Sharp, big sharp canine teeth as well. And so it got a lot of notoriety, you know, during the picture. So she decided that she was going to have it taxidermied, and it's now proudly on display in her living room.
Which I would have done the same.
Oh, yeah.
It looks cool. If you guys haven't seen it, Google it. It's easy to find.
I think I'll throw that picture up on our Instagram.
There you go.
So that way people can see it, because it is pretty cool. But about a year later, in the same county, right, in DeWitt County, it's August 8th, 2008. Now, this one is the one that I 100% remember.
Right, same.
I was pretty excited about watching it, you know, and then I was a little disappointed, I have to admit, only because in my mind, Chupacabra was a reptilian, red glowing eyes, sharp fangs with, you know, these spines.
Potentially hopping on two legs or going back to four.
Yes. And so I still had not been, I guess, updated on the newest and greatest description of a chupacabra in the Americas. I was still waiting to see that reptilian chupacabra. But Corporal Brandon, I can't remember his last name, Ryden or something like that. I'm not sure. But anyway, he was a deputy sheriff with the DeWitt County Sheriff's Department. And he was driving along, and he's got his dash cam running, and he catches what is now described as a chupacabra running along the fence line. And it was canine-like and basically had all the same features that Miss Canyon had. Right. In her taxidermied beast. And I remember watching this because it had been placed on YouTube. This thing went viral as well. And the dog, or the chupacabra, whichever you want to call it, is literally like running on the right side of the roadway, and he's following it. And I remember he's making comments about it. But then it turns and looks at him. And that's when you go, that's not a dog.
Yeah.
It had the craziest looking snout on it, you know, and it didn't look right. It wasn't proportioned properly.
No.
And so I thought, well, that thing's kind of freaky, you know. But anyway, that one was chalked up as a chupacabra sighting. And then, well, you found another one that was local here, right? Montana one.
Yeah, and this one looks a little bit different compared to the two that you just described, but it was May of 2018, and local Montana rancher. It was central Montana. I don't know exactly where it was. He shot and killed one out on his property. And you can actually go online and look at pictures. I want to say it's sitting on a tailgate in one of the pictures, if I remember correctly, but I'm not 100%.
Well, we'll throw that up on our Instagram as well.
Yeah, exactly. The cool part about this one, though, was that tests were conducted by Fish and Wildlife Services, their forensic laboratory in Ashland, Oregon. So they sent over a sample. I don't know if they sent over the whole carcass or the sample, but they sent over a sample to them, and they compared the animal's DNA with thousands of samples taken from wolves, dogs, coyotes, canine creatures, I guess you could say. And the lab officials confirmed the suspicions that it was a female chupacabra. I don't know how else to put it. Oh. They determined that it wasn't a wolf, wasn't a dog, wasn't a coyote, but somehow, some way, they confirmed that it was a female chupacabra.
You almost have to wonder, do they have a control sample?
I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can do that, but
to?
this is the federal government. This is Fish and Game.
That's wild.
Is doing it, and they said she's about 2 to 3 years old, weighed roughly 80 pounds, and from nose to rump, she was about 4 feet, which fits the description.
Fits the description of all the chupacabras.
I was so hung up on it because I just don't understand how these scientists, again, the people who have to have some kind of data and rationalize something.
Right.
They're running samples against they're running this sample against thousands of samples they have.
Right. And if it doesn't match the control samples of known species,
you would say it was an unknown species.
Then it's an unknown species.
You wouldn't say
it's a chupacabra.
Exactly.
So they must have something.
They have to, because I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but you would have to label it an unknown species.
Right.
I don't see how you could label it as such.
No.
But
and it's kind of like what we have talked about before when people have taken hair samples and said that they saw a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And then they run tests on it and then it comes back unknown. Well, if it's unknown, and we have a control sample of pretty much every living creature that we're aware of. I know there's stuff washes up from the oceans and we discover some new species of fish or something that's been at depths that we're not going down to. And so I know that we don't know everything, but we know most stuff. And we do have control samples of everything. So when they test a hair and it comes back unconfirmed, then it has to be something we don't know, which then lends credibility to the fact that it's a Bigfoot because we don't have a control sample.
And the rancher, he said that, that it looked wolf-like, but all its features were distinctly unwolf-like. So Chupacabra. Because, and if you look at the picture, you could see it's got hair on it and stuff. It's not the leathery skin like the typical chupacabra, but Montana rancher, you know what a wolf looks like.
You know what a wolf looks like.
If you're a Montanan, you know what a wolf looks like.
He's probably shot many of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we've been out fishing and seen wolves.
Oh yeah,
crying out loud,
wolves
running
and
down
coyotes.
the side of the road.
Well,
I know that there's another Montana beast on display over in Ennis,
right?
In a little museum over there, and it was deemed the Madison monster, which was shot back in like 1886, and it was known to roam the Madison Valley, and it did the same thing. It was killing livestock, routinely killing livestock. People lost hundreds of animals to these things, and this rancher goes out and smokes this thing too. But then when he gets up to it, he found that this beast had a long, narrow snout and a sloping back with long, slender legs and a black striped coat. So again, and I've seen pictures of this because it's right over here in Ennis, and it does not look like anything I've ever seen before.
Right.
And so you got to wonder, what is it, right? And so could it have been a chupacabra? Because this is 1886. This is long before.
Right.
This is 100 years before the first sighting of a chupacabra. But could they have been in existence for all this time and just never really spotted before? And then there's another, I think it's Indian folklore, right here in Montana, where they called it the Shunka Warakan. and that was a furred wolf-like beast that killed livestock, and that was another folklore. So the question is what is it?
I would have said, let's say this the Shunka Morrican is different than a Chupacabra. Taking it at face value, if you look at the picture of the Ennis one, and then you look at the one that the rancher shot in 2018, you would have said, okay, that's probably the same thing.
Yeah.
But then they had to go and test it,
right.
verify
and
that
verify
it's a
Chupacabra.
Which makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense unless we know that Chupacabras exist and we're just concealing that fact from the general public.
It's the people who don't want, they have to rationalize everything.
It's a darn government conspiracy again.
Exactly. For some weird reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why it would be.
I don't know. It's like the Bigfoot. I always go back to that because that one has more sightings, of course, than pretty much any cryptid, right? And it's like to today, somebody's probably seen a Bigfoot. And didn't the federal government, didn't the Army in like 1965 put out a field manual warning soldiers about Bigfoot?
When they would do field training exercises, they'd have maps, and on the map it would have a list of different animals, and a Bigfoot would be on there.
Specific to Oregon and Washington, and it would say how to avoid them. So if our government says that, you gotta kind of believe that they exist.
Exactly. Same with the Chupacabra.
Same with Chupacabra.
They clearly had to have slipped up and released that, oh, well, no, it's just a Chupacabra. And then they're like, oh, dang it, we shouldn't have done that.
It's just terrible.
Then they'll just gaslight us and make us believe we didn't see what we saw.
Right, yeah. And if they're hiding information, that's not right.
Right.
Just say it's a Chupacabra and it's some canine type species, and then everybody just move on. We don't care anymore anyway.
Just let us know that it's some vampire-like alien that's going to suck the life out of us if we come across it.
And so far, they only prey on livestock,
we don't have to worry about it. Right. Yeah, we're good to go.
Crazy.
I don't get it. Yeah.
No, but okay. So let's get to your sighting, because that's what I've been waiting for.
Yeah. So I was talking to the wife about it recently because I knew we were going to do this episode. We were trying to hammer down an exact time frame, because we're talking roughly 15 years ago. So I don't remember exactly when. And we know it was sometime early summer. So I'm thinking June, July-ish. And so we decide one day to take a picnic or go to the park for a picnic. So we're driving along Alfred Harrell Highway to go to Hart Park in California.
Okay.
And we're eastbound. And you've been there. You know how when you get to the entrance, it forks off.
Right.
And we take it to the right. And we're going down. We're just going to go kind of by the lake into one of the little grassy park areas they have. Well, not long after we get into the park, let me back up a little bit here. We also have our dog with us, and he's passed away now, but our dog loved every animal. So anytime we were driving, he was always in the car with us. And if he would see a dog, we took him to Yellowstone hundreds of times too, when he'd see the bison too. Those were his favorite, dogs and bison. He would start whining and stomping his feet because he wanted to get out of the car and play with them.
Well, he's no wussy dog either. He was a great big.
Yeah, he was
a
Rottweiler and a Shepherd
mix.
Yeah, he was about 85 pounds, so he's not a little boy.
No, he was a big boy.
Yeah, he was a sweetheart as long as you didn't make him mad. But but yeah, he would whine and stomp his feet at every animal he saw because he just wanted to play with them. So remember that, and then also, I love her very much. She's a very sweet, amazing woman, who you obviously know as your daughter, but. When it comes to animals, she's kind of a nut job. Let's just call it like it is.
She's insane, yeah.
And I got probably 20, 30 stories of her. She'll show up at the house from work, and she's got a stray dog with her. And I'm like, where did you get that thing? Well, I was pumping gas, and it was, this is back when we lived in California, so there's a lot of stray dogs there. Montanans might not understand that because there's not a lot of stray dogs here. But she'd bring home a stray dog, and we'd have it for a day, 2 days. She'd either, take it to my work at the time and give it to the owner of the company who had this big ranch, and she had a big area for dogs, and then she'd find a place for it. Or she'd drive up and down the neighborhoods with the thing, seeing if people wanted dogs. I mean, you remember we were fishing one time and she
Oh.
refused to leave the fishing site because of some dog
Horrifying
that was
day
there
for me.
and
Yeah.
she couldn't find the owner. So she's like, we have to take it.
We have to take the
We
dog.
have to take care of it. It's
I
not safe.
remember you and I both saying, this is a fisherman's dog.
He runs the
and
river,
it
leave him
runs the
alone."
river. He'll be back. Nope.
Nope. And she
Gotta-
was adamant she was not going to leave.
Nope.
She is very hard-headed.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart, but yeah, she's hard-headed. I mean, there was a time where she brought a stray home, and not only did she bring the stray home, she brought home new dog bowls, dog food, because she didn't know how long we were going to have it.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case, just in case. And then whoever she gave it to at the time, I think it was a guy who lived a couple doors down. But she just gave him all the stuff we had with it. But anyway, so she's a sweetheart. She's very caring. But when it comes to stray animals, she's a nut. So with that being said, we're driving down, and on the right-hand side, she's like, what is that? So I look over, and, you're driving 10 miles an hour at that, 15 miles an hour maybe. So you're cruising. You're driving slow because it's public area.
it's a
There's public park.
Yeah.
And you could see that it's, at the time, when we first saw it, we thought it was a dog because it's kind of far away. And then when we got closer to it, we're looking out the passenger side window, and it's probably 30 yards away. And it's a flat area, and then there's some hills. And it's partially up the way of the hill, but it's not far away. We could see it perfectly fine. And then her demeanor changes a little, and she's like, what is that thing? So I joke, and because now I'm stopped. And I'm like, it's a Chupacabra, clearly. And we laugh about it, and we're looking at it. She's like, no, what is that? So she was freaked out by it, to the point where not once during this whole encounter, and I'll talk more about it, did she ever say, somebody clearly dumped a stray dog. We got to save this
let's
thing.
take this one
exactly.
home. Right, yeah.
Because she was terrified. And on top of it, my dog, he was sitting down, not standing up like he normally does, and he was just staring at it. Silent, no whimpering, no crying, nothing.
Didn't want to play with it.
And I get people are like, oh, well, maybe, he probably didn't do it with every animal. No, it was to the point it's annoying. He did it with every animal. Same with my wife.
Right.
Every dog we saw was getting rescued if she had a say in it. So if I ever saw a stray dog and we were short on time, I might speed up or tell her to look the other way just so we didn't have to deal with it. But so this thing, like I said, we're stopped at the time. It's about roughly 30 yards away, give or take. It's got gray, brown skin. It's not gray, it's not brown. It's like perfect mixture of both, but it's kind of dark. And
So not a lot of fur. You can clearly see skin.
it's skin except on its back. Kind of like where when a dog starts to growl, like where the hackles go.
Yes, right.
So from like the hackles back to its rump, not on its head, a little on its neck, but mostly that like top shoulder region.
So he's got a mohawk.
But it's not hair, at least from what it looks like from where we're sitting. It's, hair, you think it's all bunched up. It looks, like you said, like a mohawk. This was probably, if I had to guess, it was probably spaced apart 1 inch to 2 inches, each piece of hair.
Oh,
but the hair wasn't hair. It looked like thick wire.
Right.
So it was almost, I don't want to say quill-like, because I know that was one of the descriptors. To me, I would have said, if you asked me, I would say it looked like a big, thick piece of cable wire. And it ran, like I said, sporadically like that, all down its back. 1 to 2 inches apart, spaced, never bunched up. And it didn't look like strands of individual hair. It looked thick, almost like it was sharp. And then it turned its head, and its head was significantly bigger than its body. And that snout was thick and long.
Kind of like that deputy's video.
Exactly. It was kind of like that, where that head was so much bigger than the rest of it. Size-wise, if anybody looks at that video, I would say it was probably about that size, like a medium-sized, quote-unquote, dog would be.
Right.
I was trying to remember this with my wife. I don't ever remember, and she doesn't either, the tail. I don't know if it had a tail, or if it did have a tail, or if we were just so focused on its head and its back that we didn't really notice. Same with the legs. I don't remember if the legs were longer or if they were quote-unquote normal-sized dog legs. But I remember when it turned its head, she said again, and I won't use the word she used, but she was like, what is that thing? Like, that's not a dog. What is that thing? And she just kept saying, what is that thing? And I made the joke again, like, oh, it's a chupacabra.
It's
But
clearly a chupacabra.
at this point, I'm thinking, no, it's a chupacabra. We're looking at a chupacabra right now. And so I don't remember how long we sit there, but it was a good amount of time, probably 10 seconds that it sat with us. And then we started to slowly drive. And as we slowly started to go, it started to kind of walk, and then it started to trot, and then it turned away from going parallel with us to the right, and it went up in the hills and kept going off.
Wow.
And for the rest of the day, we couldn't help but think, like, what was it? It had to be, she kept asking, what was it? And I couldn't go to anything else but chupacabra.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And again, like I said, this is 15 years ago. We had flip phones back then. At least my wife and I did.
Oh, yeah.
So
Right.
there was no thought in our mind of, hey, let's whip out our flip phone and take a picture. Because anybody listening who's old enough to remember those, you couldn't take a picture of yourself and know what it was.
2 pixels per inch or something.
Exactly.
Just horrible photos.
But I can't help but think that it had to be a chupacabra.
Yeah, what else could it be?
It looked so much like the video of that deputy took, but the hair was what was different. Because in the video, I don't know, maybe it's just I couldn't tell. I couldn't see any hair on the one in the video. It's also moving and from a dash cam, so it's hard to tell. But
it kind of looked like the brown leathery-ish skin like you were talking.
Whereas this thing looked like, if I went with the hair, it would probably be fine, like if I was petting it. But if I went against it, it would slice my hand up because it just looked like thick, sharp wire.
Yeah. And now this area of California you're talking about is like the Central Valley, but it's toward the southern end of it.
Right.
And so I would imagine, California bordering Mexico and whatnot, that chupacabra sightings are just as frequent in Southern California as they would be in, say, Arizona area.
Exactly.
I mean, they border each other.
Right.
So not uncommon
Yeah.
to have a chupacabra. And then that particular area that you're in is nothing but foothills and like oil fields and
deserty
kinda
foothills, yeah.
deserty vast area where I guess a chupacabra would pretty much thrive because it's also farmland out there. A lot of goats, a lot of sheep herders and stuff out that way. So food for them to eat.
Yeah. And I get people don't know my wife, obviously, but they don't understand the level of dedication she had to saving a stray dog.
It's so far beyond what the norm would be.
She was terrified when she saw that thing. Like, her whole demeanor changed when it looked towards us, and you could see that big, thick. Because that's the thing when I was going over it with her again, kind of just to get her side of it. Even her telling me, she's like, "Yeah, the face was terrifying. It was not a dog's face."
Right.
And before people go, okay, it's clearly a coyote with mange. I've seen coyotes with mange.
Yeah.
I've seen them in person, and I've looked at pictures online. Same with the dog with mange. And even last night, before I knew we were going to record this, or, the night before we were recording this, so that way if people wanted to debunk it or whatever, I spent 20, 30 minutes just scrolling through Google images of dogs with mange.
Well, we actually looked that up, right?
Right.
We were going to have a little section on debunking, but I don't see a need to.
Right.
And the reason I don't is because we've already kind of touched on the fact that people, they want science to prevail. They don't believe in anything that they can't physically or tangibly touch, see, or et cetera. Right?
And technically, science did prevail because they took the sample and labeled it a chupacabra.
Yeah, right. What I saw is that, like the University of Michigan and stuff, they had a biologist, I'm not even going to mention his name, but he's stating that all chupacabra reports in the United States were simply coyotes infected with the parasite. I believe it's called Sarcoptes scabii or something like that. But all it is it's a mite.
Yep.
And it's scabies.
I looked at hundreds of pictures of that too.
And I've looked at them as well. We looked at them together, and nothing. It's not a chupacabra.
Nothing looked like what we saw.
No.
Because let's say I'm wrong with that, and that's why the skin looks like that. A coyote's face doesn't look like that.
Right. I was going to say it doesn't change facial structure.
Right.
Sloping bodies, large snouts, recessed lower jaws, long hind legs.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I almost missed a part. So thank you for reminding me. Its back. was, let me back up. This animal didn't look sick. When you look at the pictures of dogs or coyotes with mange or that other disease, the scabies, they look sick. They don't look healthy. Like,
Right.
not only because of the stuff they have on their body, but they're skinny, they're sickly. They don't look like a healthy animal. This thing looked totally fine, like a wild animal. Its back had a large arch in it. I prefaced it with it didn't look sick because someone might go, oh, it's clearly an injured animal. But it wasn't. It was just a big hunch. And the way my wife was describing it was, to her, it looked like, you know how when a cat does that dumb thing where they kind of go sideways and their back arches up like when they're mad?
Right.
It looked like that. But when a cat does it, it looks like it's trying to do that, right? Like it's showing you that it's angry.
Right.
Whereas this thing, it looked like that, but it was just natural in the body. Just that big arch in the back with those big wiry spines on it. I don't know what else to call them because it wasn't hair.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says. It wasn't hair. Even my wife was like, it didn't look like hair. And it wasn't bunched up like hair was. And I know people will go, well, mange eats at takes the hair away and patchy, blah, blah, blah. No, these things were like 2 to 3 inches long. You could see them from 30 yards away.
Right.
There's no way it was hair.
Right. And you know what? People know what mange looks like.
Right.
And there are diseased animals. I've seen coyotes, even in the wild, where patches of hair are falling out. There's Mexican hairless breeds of dog. They're funky looking, but they're not chupacabras.
Right.
That's the difference. Is, again, this isn't misidentification.
Right.
What you saw is what has been described as a chupacabra, not as a Mexican hairless canine breed or an animal with mange.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt in my mind you saw a chupacabra.
Yeah.
and obviously in yours and in your wife's.
Yeah. And she didn't even, to back it up again, she doesn't, at the time, even more so. Now she's kind of leaning towards our side with stuff. But at the time, she kept just dismissing me. She's like, a chupacabra, come on, that's not a real thing. Like, what was that? It was like a sick animal or something. No, that's a chupacabra.
It's called a chupacabra.
It didn't look sick, right? She's like, well, no, it didn't look sick. So,
right.
Yeah.
But see, this image is like forever burned in your head, right? And it is for her too. But I have a question for you. Did you ever report it?
No, because you didn't think about it.
See?
We were on our way to have a picnic.
This is just
we went and had our picnic and went home. Yeah.
People don't report things that they see for one of multiple reasons. Either you're afraid you're going to be labeled as a quack.
Yep.
Or you got better things to do. You move on. You saw something that you can't explain and you move on, right? But you didn't get a picture. You didn't report it. You didn't do anything other than witness a chupacabra in the wild. and I just can't help but go back to this all the time because think how many people see stuff.
Right.
And it's not reported. And then the ones that do report it, we just scoff at them and say, clearly, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And I know you're not crazy. Your wife might be just a little skosh.
Yeah, just a touch.
When it comes to animals.
Right.
Might be a little bit crazy. But yeah, if she wanted nothing to do with it and your dog didn't want to play with it, again, there's that whole, and I'm not going to say that a chupacabra is evil like the Jersey Devil or demonic.
Right.
It's probably just some species of animal.
Vampire-sucking aliens.
A vampire-sucking alien, right. That we clearly know exists because we obviously have a control sample over in the forensic labs in Oregon for them to label it a chupacabra. But I don't know, man. It's a wild, crazy world we live in, and there are things that live among us that we can't fathom, can't comprehend. And you were fortunate enough to see one. Yeah. My wife got to see a Bigfoot, and
I wish it was present day so I could have made the attempt of
chasing
pulling out the
down.
phone. And because like I said, at the time, it's California, so I don't have a firearm on me. I don't have a weapon on me, unfortunately. I got a pocket knife and I got a flip phone.
An old razor or something.
If I would have went to grab that thing, it's
Yeah, even if you
quills
wanted
would
to
have shot through my
text
hand or something.
somebody, you got to push each button 3 times to
Exactly.
get a letter. You know, it's 3 hours later you get out something.
But the amount of time it stood still, there's no doubt that nowadays I could have got my phone out of my pocket, pulled it up, zoomed in, got a picture,
yeah,
then been labeled as a hoaxer because
yeah.
people think that you're a nut job when you get a clear picture.
Slightly blurry or
Yep.
something, and then you'd just be a
Exactly.
lunatic like the rest of them. But no, that's pretty awesome though, and I have no doubt that the Chupacabra has to exist. It's been seen just thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and
The sightings and the puncture wounds are the biggest thing for me.
right, there's more to it than some diseased canine. And you know how many, even if you said that, these are just diseased, manged coyotes. How many of those are out there running around in only certain regions, right? Like, have you seen one here in Montana? I've never seen a Chupacabra here in Montana.
No, I've seen a bunch of coyotes.
Now they supposedly shot some out here, right? And so some people are seeing them, but those had fur and they weren't mangy.
Right.
So they could be the other Indian folklore species. Who knows? But I just don't think you can always chalk up a cryptid to being something that we know what it is, but it was just diseased.
Exactly.
So, yeah, in my book, you saw one and you were fortunate to see it, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's a great story. It's fun to listen to. Anyway, I don't know. You got anything else to add to the story, or anything else you can think of?
I think that's it. Yeah, just like I said, I wish it was present day so I could have got that picture.
Yeah, it would be fun if you
Popped it.
had a picture of that, or smoked that thing so that you could have it in your living room.
Oh yeah, my wife would have fought against it, but she would have had to deal with it. Yeah,
she wouldn't have allowed that. We'd have to put that out in a man cave.
Yeah,
or something,
exactly.
Stare at it. But yeah, I don't really have anything either. I think that'll conclude our episode on Chupacabra. I'm convinced they exist, and I think they're all over the place, and people see them so routinely that if you want to see a picture of one, all you got to do is go on Google and say Chupacabra, and people are posting them on YouTube. People are posting them, routinely, especially in the Texas area. So, so go online, take a look, or if you want to head over to our Instagram, we'll have some pictures of Chupacabra on there as well, and the Montana Beast, the Madison Beast.
Oh yeah,
and see what you think about those.
We'll have to make a trip down there.
Yeah,
and we'll take a picture in person as well and post it eventually.
Yeah, I like it. I think we need to do that. We need to get out and do some cryptid hunting, so that we can have firsthand accounts of stuff as well.
I like it.
So yeah, so I think that ought to do it. We'll wrap up. I think next week, or in 2 weeks, actually, I'm sorry, we will be talking about the lizard man of South Carolina.
I like it.
Another reptilian creature, but this one there's a lot of accounts on, and he apparently likes to eat chrome off of cars.
Who doesn't love a good swamp monster?
Who doesn't love a good swamp monster? Exactly. So yeah, unless you got anything, Jake, we'll go ahead and conclude, and we'll look forward to our next episode.
Good to go. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the show and you want to help us out, then go ahead and give us a follow, leave us a review, and don't forget to turn on the automatic download button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And as always, if you've had any experiences, stories, thoughts, comments, or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to cryptidfanatic@gmail.com. Let us know if you'd like to be on the show or just have your story featured during one of our episodes.